Australia at the moment. So
I think it's important, isn't it? For the evolution of the sport and bringing more media attention and bigger sponsorships and better events. If that's all going to happen inside of Australia, I think this stuff matters. That's part of what we're trying to do. Is help with that process as best we can by doing the things that we're trying to do well.
It's such a weird country because it's such a big place, but it has such a small scene. So without media, like there's no way to. It's really hard to promote and grow because not everyone wants to travel 24 hours across the country to go and race in WA.
Yeah, exactly.
So we live in an interesting place, that's for sure.
But no shortage of riders, though. You've got plenty of talent.
Exactly.
I mean, in the short time I've been involved, it's very clear to me that there's some very competitive guys and girls. And long may that continue.
Well, yeah, it's always been mind-blowing for us in Adelaide where we don't even have mountains.
So. That's what I mean. Consider if you look at the terrain of Australia compared to New Zealand even, or Switzerland, France, Italy, these sorts of places, and you're producing the level of athlete to race mountain bikings, imagine you had the training grounds that those countries have, you do a lot better at the World Cups, right?
Exactly. Well, like you look at Connor and Troy, and I think the longest race run for them here is 1:58.
Yeah.
And then they've got to go race 3 to 5 minutes. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Were you pretty stoked with Gilchrist in Roto?
Yeah. So, the boys are doing really well, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah.
I think Ryan and Luke are sort of hitting peak form at the moment. I think he's put a lot of time into the Crankwork events. And it's a shame he's not going to Cairns, but yeah, he's obviously did really well over in New Zealand.
Thanks. I think once he learns some tricks, he'll be like the perfect Crankworks athlete.
How long have you known Ryan yourself?
3 years, I think. Yeah, met him in Thredbo 2022. So two or 3 years, yeah.
So I guess, is he in the mountain bike world? Is it as new for people like yourself as it is for us, or has he sort of been a household name for a while now?
Oh, he's last year, I reckon, he's really blown up. So everyone after he rode Thredbo in must have been 21, he rode Cannonball.
When the Nationals were there?
The year before Nationals.
Year before that, right.
Because he rode Thredbo and Cannonball, and everyone was there was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, legitimate, like he must have just, I don't know if he came from that BMX thing. I can't remember exactly, but they're just like, who is this dude?
Yeah.
And then SRAM, I'm pretty sure SRAM or PSI like paid for him to go to Nationals. They're like, you have to go. Like,
what was he racing at the time then? He was just racing enduro, was he?
He was just racing, enduro. He did everything at Cannonball. And just
did everything.
Smoked everyone. And then the last year he seemed to have, he did well in the EWS and some of the clips he's been putting up, and then he did the manual through the whoops at Queensland, and everyone's just like, well, okay. And
he's got skills for sure.
And now they see him, everyone sees him rock up to a pump track, and now it's racing for second.
That's his thing. From what I've watched of him in the last 12 months, I mean, he obviously wins other races, but he stands out as a bit of a star on the pump track in my eyes. Like, we were at Thredbo, and like Luke was unlucky, he crashed, but there's just something about the style, maybe that's the right word I'm looking for. He's just got this, it's almost like a polished style. He just perfects the way he goes around that track, and he obviously puts the times in as well, so super effective.
But then you watch him ride. So I watched him ride EWS and Tassie last year, and that was probably when I first seen him at that level. and he rides the downhill or the enduro tracks the exact same way. He just pumps and maneuvers around everything like dialed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was his race to lose. Unfortunately, he didn't come through on it. But yeah, it was unreal to watch him.
I mean, it's what we were talking about before. Like, it's great that you've got him and Luke at the same time, both sort of dominating their fields. I mean, it's great for Australia, right? That these boys are now, winning here on home soil, and they're leaving with the national titles of downhill and enduro. And, we're hoping that they can get some success in Europe this year.
100%. Yeah, if Luke stays healthy, then 100%.
Yeah. And it's been great for us, because when we've come onto the scene, we were blessed that was the relationships they were the first relationships we had. And it would, being new to mountain biking, we didn't know that was the level of talent that the boys had at the time. So, we were very grateful that was just one of them synchronistic events that, we just got put in front of these guys and they just happened to be superstars.
Yeah. They're just unbelievable. The work ethic on them as well is unreal.
Yeah. I've witnessed that firsthand. So
I might as well just keep going.
Yeah. Would you like me to explain your first question, like how we basically came to be and how it all began, I guess?
Yeah. So we'll just continue on from there, and so maybe talk about who you are and what you're kind of doing.
So going back, I guess, just over 12 months, we took on a business project, which at the time was just a protein powder. We went by the name of P3, or Purity Plant Protein. For those that have been following us on Instagram for a while, you might have known us as P3 originally. And at the time when we took on the project, Ryan was an ambassador for the brand. So me and my business partner didn't know Ryan at the time, and we were taking on a new business. And the only thing that we were asked to do from the previous ownership was to keep the relationship with Ryan. We were like, okay, we don't really know who the guy is, but we're at least willing to have a conversation and, learn a little bit more about what's going on. And he said that you might also be interested in the fact that, he's heavily connected into the mountain bike sport, and it might be a good opportunity for you to put your product in front of that audience. So we're like, oh, okay, well, that sounds interesting. So we got on the phone to Ryan, my business partner, Jules did. And straight away it just clicked. It was like, oh, this guy's talented. Because I don't know what else you know about Ryan, but he's intelligent as well as being a great mountain bike rider. So he was very effective at helping us with the things that we were doing on day one, which was basically just having conversations with people. And Ryan was actually using it because the product itself was a plant protein, and it was gut healthy, should we say. A lot of the things on the market can be compromising to health, is probably a good way to put it. Like the whey proteins, they're full of bad things, bad chemicals. They're not made to very high quality. So he was actually using the product already. So we weren't actually having to sell it to him per se. He was using it. So it was a easy relationship to continue with. And the very first question he said to us was, would you be willing to offer the same to one of my friends? And we were like, oh, geez, we just met him and he's coming in with these requests. And we're like, sure, who you're talking about. And that was Luke. Luke was his friend. To us at the time, we were naive. We didn't know Ryan or Luke. We were brand new into mountain biking as a sport. So they were just people to us. They didn't come with that fame or stardom, or, it was just a conversation on the phone. And a little bit about me is I'd come from, so my background's in nutrition. So I'd worked with athletes before in different sports, specifically around coaching, sports nutrition, and performance. So I felt like the easiest way I could add value to these boys, knowing that they were athletes, was to talk about diet with them both. And it just so happened that at the time that we met them both, I think they'd just come off the back of a World Cup season. So as you will very well know, the lifestyle is you're going from time zone to time zone, and maybe sleep's not ideal. They're being asked to perform at all these races. And I was a bit shocked to learn that neither of them had access to what I would describe as a sports nutritionist or health coach.
Mm.
They had access to, I think Ryan works quite closely with Jared Graves, on the Yeti team, and Luke had connections through Giant. I think he's doing a lot of his gym stuff with Alan Milway. But neither of them had access to someone that could sit down with them and go, look, guys, you're getting sick quite frequently here. This is what you probably need to think about. So that was where I was able to add value to the boys as a coach. And I sat them down and I spoke about some things with them, about lifestyle, about their routine, what their lifestyle looks like when they're both in Australia and in Europe. And I did some health tests with them, which is basically just a stool sample test. You look at the gut microbiome, and they both came back with things that for me was alarming. Like I could see why they were getting sick, because they had things going on in their gut that just needed to be treated. And it's quite simple once you know what you're doing. You just need to get the right stuff in front of them. So I'm a big advocate of like the natural health. I don't like them going to the GP best possible. For going down the natural side of, curing things or putting the right things in the body. And within about 3 months, Luke went from being like what he would have described as regularly sick to feeling great again. So it sort of brought that stamp of approval. I could actually support these boys. And then that sort of became the basis of our relationship. They would always reach out to me, got a race this weekend, what should I be eating? I've got a race tomorrow, what should I do? What should I be thinking about when it comes to hydration? And then we just started to, I had never met them at this point, face to face, everything on the phone, through WhatsApp, through Instagram. But we were developing this trust. They started to trust me more because the advice that I was giving them was helping. And that just went on for 12 months. That went into their next season as they went over to Europe. And about 12 months into the relationship, I had the opportunity to meet them both. And so at that point, I guess I was positioned as their health coach, their nutrition coach. And I guess it was moving in the direction of like a performance coach.
Yeah.
So that's the relationship that I was having with the boys. And at the same time, we've still got our Instagram, which is the Purity Plant Protein. And the boys, basically what they did for us in terms of business was they just opened up doors in the mountain bike world that we would never have been able to do because we didn't know people, right? They were just saying, oh, you should chat to this guy, or, this person's really, good to talk to about this. And we just started to pick up the phone, me and my business partner, and just introduce ourselves to people. We were meeting people that were doing podcasts. We met people that had media things going on. We met like merchandise companies. We were just trying to get a feel for what was going on inside the sport. We were getting perspective of what Luke and Ryan were telling us. And then we were also hearing it from all these new people that we were having conversations with. And that was just a weekly thing. We were just picking up the phone and making new relationships almost every day. And this is most of 2023. This was happening. And then what naturally started to happen was the Instagram following just became mountain bike people, because a lot of the media that we were sharing was of Luke and Ryan.
Yeah.
Naturally, even though the product that we were selling was a protein, we weren't like posting all of this like gym bro stuff. And, it was completely focused on mountain biking. And that was sort of the strategy as soon as we built the relationship with the boys. And I think I was down at the beach one day. I live in Sydney. I was just down at the beach one day, and an idea came to me because of what I do as a coach. I coach people in health and wellness, and I write strength programs for people of that nature. And I've worked with athletes in different sports. And I just put on the P3 Instagram stories one day, would anybody be interested if I wrote them a 6-week strength program for mountain biking?
I think I remember that. Yeah.
And it amazed me, the response that we got. I think over a weekend. So it was like, say it was a Friday morning. By Sunday, we had about 80 names of kids, mostly kids. So from age like 14 up to maybe 16, 17, 18. And they'd sent their names and email addresses of an expression of interest to receive a free coaching program. I was like, I spoke to my partner. I was like, oh my God, this is like, we've been trying to get leads for our existing business for years. And I'd never tapped into something like this, and this was just a off the cuff type of thing where I just felt like, oh, maybe some of the guys might like to learn how to strength train. And they did. And straight away, we just basically started to onboard them into a coaching app that we were running at the time for our other business. and just writing programs which were specific for teaching the kids how to train properly for off the bike stuff to help them with mountain biking. So just basics of when they're going to the gym for the first time. And some of them, it was going to the gym for the first time. You know, they were 14, 15, and they had never picked a dumbbell up in their life, and they just wanted direction. And that was just what we did. And that went on for about 3 months.
Yeah.
The momentum that we started to get was so big that it was almost too big to ignore. And we felt like it would be a shame if we didn't actually provide a proper business model behind this, because there's a lot of people asking for help here. So what became apparent to me was that maybe this sport just currently doesn't have a network of coaches that can provide the right information to these kids.
I think definitely not.
They're getting help at the bike parks, on the bike, which lines to take, all of that sort of stuff. They don't seem to be struggling to reach out for. But it's like they're becoming more aware that the likes of Luke and Ryan aren't winning things just because they're good on the bike, right? They're actually great athletes.
You don't just ride your bike 8 or 9 hours a day and get strong and fit, right? Like,
so then what we did was we were fortunate to have the now quite a strong relationship with Luke and Ryan. And we felt like we could share the blueprint of what it actually took to go from like a talented 14, 15-year-old BMXer that was winning local competitions in both of their cases. So you have to have an underlying talent, right? But it was like, what did they then do to take them from there to being able to ride for Giant or ride for Yeti? We just felt that if we could share a bit of that story to the younger guys, that they could believe that that was possible for them too. And then we just started to build that into a structured way of coaching that the kids could feel that they were being supported, you know? So we knew that we couldn't coach them all face to face. We're here in Sydney. But there was kids in Western Australia. We had kids in Victoria. We had kids in Queensland, all over the place, right? And it was like, okay, there's a lot of people asking for help. As a coach, naturally, my instinct was to just want to help. And so we just kept going. I just kept, updating the programs every 4 to 6 weeks, and they kept signing up and they kept wanting to keep going with it. But the longer that this went on, it became crazy that our actual business was purely plant protein. We sat down and we just said, look, we need to evolve. We need to actually evolve the message, like, who are we? What are we trying to do? What is the brand about? And how are we actually providing value to this community? And at that point, we decided to, change the brand completely from purely plant protein and about the revenue being a protein sale to essentially building what is now SuperDust. And, it's the online mountain bike academy. And we actually still have the protein, and we've evolved the product line as well, because having the nutrition background, I've been working with a company developing products as well. So we still have the protein. We've developed electrolytes, and then we have what we call Superflow Greens as well, which is like it's like a multivitamin which has like immune boosting stuff. And that was off the bat learning about Luke and Ryan being so sick and making an assumption that it's probable that some of the other kids are maybe getting sick quite regularly as well. So the academy is basically an online platform. I do actually have some mountain bikers that come and see me face to face here in Sydney, and they're just people who through being in business for 12 months and went to Threadbow. We had a SuperDust tent at Threadbow, so people actually have met us now, and there's people local, but our actual academy is all online. So I think that's brought you up to speed from what's gone on in the last 12 months. A
few things I want to stem off. I guess the first one is like, it's funny you mentioned the sickness, because I was just up in Nationals, and, you're staying in a spot where there is no supermarket. Like, it's 45 minutes away. The closest thing you got is a pub, and the best meal they do is maybe a palmy. And then you eat that and you're moving around. You're basically just eating garbage for a week and a half, no matter what you try. But then, like, I noticed I'll get sick on the way home. And it's funny that you mentioned, like, the food and what you're putting in is definitely helping, because the amount of veggies and the amount of good food I was craving at the end was insane.
And that's probably what was happening with the boys when they're traveling. It's, you don't know where you are. They're in a foreign place. They don't know all of the best sources to go and get the healthy food, and you just end up eating what's available. And often it's fast foods, as you know, in most places. That's typically how it goes. Yeah. So as a nutritionist, that's the dots that I'm trying to connect, especially with performance athletes. I mean, for everyday people as well. But as a high performance athlete, you have to understand the relationship between how you choose to eat, what food and energy you put inside your body, and how you feel. So absolutely, if you're not putting the right stuff in, you can be susceptible to getting sick, and definitely not having the energy to race and put out a good for sure.
What were your thoughts when you saw them putting up carb corner every race and stuff? I don't know if you saw that on the Instagram, but
no, I didn't see that. I am aware now from obviously chatting to a lot of the racers, the nature of the foods that go into like race day preparation and stuff like that, and it's typically heavy around lollies and all of these candies and sweets and stuff like that. Look, I think there's a time and a place where a professional athlete can justify taking on 100, 200 grams of carbs right before a performance meet. But I think what gets lost in understanding is the kids copy that, and they're not potentially doing the same level of output. And that's where it can be like a misunderstood message. And I think when it comes to carbohydrate, there's also a huge spectrum of good quality carbohydrate and cheap, nasty, toxic carbohydrate, which is not going to be good for your health. And I think that's a lot of what I've been trying to help the younger ones understand is there's a time and a place for a lolly, like that can help, but not making that an everyday habit that you're doing every single time you get on the bike, and trying to help them understand that if they put the right things on their dinner table or their lunch, they can actually feel the body a lot better from just better food choices.
Was that like a specific mountain bike thing you noticed? Just dudes rocking up, or is it in most sports? You think that's happening as well?
Yes. I've worked with some high level rugby union players, and I've worked with some high level soccer players as well. I would definitely say on match day that happens. They're drinking the Gatorades. They're looking for something like sweet at half time, and that could be in the form of lollies. I do think that the trend in mountain biking is higher, maybe because of the way that road cycling is and the way that they have the gels and it's readily available. And there's a big sort of trend, I guess, in cycling in general. So I think the mountain bikers latch onto that in a way where they sort of maybe copy some of what's going on in other cycling sports.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my observation, at least. But I also think it's just there's no direction, right? It's not like there's somebody out there teaching this stuff. They're just copying what the professionals are doing, and this is what the professionals are doing, right? This is what the pro road cyclists are doing. It's what the professional mountain bikers are doing. So they're the role models. So if they're doing it, of course the kids are going to do it. But I do absolutely think that it can be better. I think that the education and even the way that the professionals are doing it can be better. And that's a lot of the conversations I've had with the boys.
And there's definitely like a huge hole in that education and the people doing that.
Yeah.
Specifically, not just in the mountain bike industry though. Like most sports, I don't see many people going to a nutritionist or anything. They just go straight to the people with results, which is gym trainers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is probably the best place that you can find people that are qualified in nutrition now is inside of fitness establishments. In the UK, the football, the soccer is, well equipped with sports nutritionists and stuff like that. Now that's just because of the money that's in the game. I think you probably would find that in the NRL here, perhaps. You'd get sports nutritionists, but it's rare. It's certainly not like a standard in every single sport. And I think if you're going to look at trying to take mountain biking to the next level in popularity and levels of performance, nutrition absolutely has to improve. It's not up for debate. It's a non-negotiable. If you want the athletes to be better athletes, then nutrition has to be better. It's they go hand in hand.
Yeah, well, you don't see people putting unleaded 91 in their top fuel dragster. So
yeah, exactly.
What What was it like? You obviously kind of came into the mountain bike industry a little bit green and a little bit kind of, I guess, out of touch with what was happening. What was it like developing the gym programs and strength programs specific for the sport? Was there much difference between what you'd been doing before?
So it's a good question. As soon as I'd met Ryan and Luke, I studied the people that they were learning from. So Jared Graves, and then in Luke's case, it was Alan Milway.
Yeah.
And I think it was a lot harder to get access to some of the programming that Ryan was doing. It was quite sort of kept behind closed doors. But I went into like Training Peaks. You're familiar with that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of coaches sharing, the types of programs that they're writing. So I think what's true in the world that I've learned how to coach is that once you understand the principles of coaching and the science behind the methods, you just have to adapt them for whatever sport requires what things of an athlete. So obviously, if we're talking about a mountain biker, there's a need for them to be strong. There's a need for them to be able to produce power. They need to have a certain level of stability and control of the bike. So you're then, as a coach, just looking at, well, how do you teach that in terms of what you need to do in a gym? So, I was aware that Alan was coaching some of the top riders over in the UK. So I started to look at the way that he was thinking about programming. And then I compared that to what I was doing with athletes in other sports.
Yeah.
And the structure of a training program is very similar. It's just, what do they do with the time? So, for example, if I'm training a soccer player, there's still a need to do mobility. There's still a need to do prehab. Still a need to do conditioning, anaerobic conditioning. There's still a need to do strength. But it's what muscles are most important for a soccer player versus what muscles are most important for a mountain biker. So once you can think of it objectively like that, they're just little changes. It's not actually as complicated as you might think. It's just watching enough mountain bike races to go, what type of positions is the body in during the race? And if I was to help improve that rider, where would they need to be strong in order to control the bike better? So they grip their shoulders, their upper back, their core, the legs to produce power. And then, the more I've studied it and the more guys that I've written programs for, and I've been very open the whole time, I've said, like, please tell me feedback. I'm here to learn. I'm a student, that first and foremost. I'm not here to tell you everything is wrong. I'm here to try and add value, but at the same time, listen, it's especially when I'm talking to the pros, because I want to get better at this stuff. I want to constantly improve how I'm writing the programs. But I started with the thing that I felt most confident with, and that was the strength side of stuff. So inside of strength, it's like the prehab. So prehab is a word that we use for pick any rider over the course of a season. What are the most common injuries that might happen for a mountain biker? And it's like you're putting stuff deliberately into their program that can help eliminate best possible some of them injuries occurring. So like the opposite end of that is when the rider actually gets injured, they come off, they break their arm. And then when they're in the process of getting back into the gym, you do rehab.
Yeah.
Prehab and rehab, right? So prehab is trying to best possible control the risk of injury. Then you've got the strength. The main component of the session is the strength conditioning. So it's breaking down the different muscle groups or how the body works and just writing smart programming. So which exercises are best done in what order and the intensity of each thing. And this is built now all inside of the academy, different tiers. So from like beginner level right the way up to, your more advanced riders that have perhaps been in the gym a bit more. And then my newest addition to some of the programming is expanding a little bit more with the fitness side of stuff. Because the enduro riders were complaining that it's all good and well giving me all this strength stuff, but it actually only contributes to about 20% of what I actually need. Okay, that makes sense. So then, I've started to build their weeks a little bit more tailored around like doing repeat sprint efforts and, FTP testing and the anaerobic threshold, which, I've learned how to do for other sports people, but now I'm learning how to do that well for mountain bikers.
All the fun stuff for those guys.
Yeah. And so the strength stuff was slightly different between the downhill guys and the enduro guys, right? So just slightly different in terms of their need for upper body strength and the power control, and obviously coming down the tracks at steeper inclines, like more parts and stuff like that. Where the enduro guys, there's a need for more pedal, more power out on demand. So again, you can just slightly vary how they're training to get that outcome.
Did you, or have you noticed a common like weakness or I guess void in training for across the board for most of the mountain bikers you deal with?
Well, I use Luke as a good standard, because when I met Luke, it was very clear to me that he took this stuff seriously. And I use him as the standard because I think the fact that he's now winning as well is good, because it validates him doing that work in a way. And I think the guys that don't do that work are going to find that gap might keep increasing. And again, as a student, I've looked into the way that Alan Milway coaches, and he's a huge advocate of the downhill riders doing strength training. But across the board, when it came here, the fact that there was so many kids putting their hands up for help was a clear sign that no one was currently doing it, or at least doing it well. So either there was a hole in the education, or they just didn't have a coach that was capable of writing the right type of, I guess, programs for these guys where they felt trusting enough to follow it. So the first thing that I noticed was, I'm talking like the older guys now, right? Like the 17s and 19s, the ones that are looking to break into the elites.
Yeah.
Lots of talent, spending loads of time on the bike, but hadn't yet clicked that there's an underlying need for the athleticism as well. And that can't all come from on the bike, right? They can develop the skill. They can definitely improve fitness from time on the bike. You're going to get stronger from handling your bike, but not in the same way that you can by actually deliberately programming, strength training in a certain way. So, there's definitely an opportunity for growth is the way I looked at it. As a coach, I was looking at it going, well, if these guys are already putting these types of numbers down and they're not currently following, a proper athletic development program, then to me, that's positive, because it shows that there's a huge opportunity for these guys to get better. And I've seen how that approach impacts athletes in other sports. So back in the 90s in the UK, the culture around football was that even this is in the top leagues, you'd have raw talent, the guys that were just blessed with talent. But on a Saturday weekend, the weekend would come around and the boys would still be going out drinking pints of beer. And that went on for probably the early half of the 90s. But by the time we started going into the early 2000s, this is probably around the same time that you start getting like sports scientists and sports nutrition strength coaches coming into the professional game. The level of athleticism just year on year started to go up. And the boys that weren't doing that stuff just got left behind, because the minimum buy-in was that you were a 10 out of 10 athlete. You had to be able to sprint. You had to play for 90 minutes. You had to be able to overcome injuries. And the guys that didn't adapt their lifestyles, even though they had talent, they just didn't have the athleticism. So that's basically the direction that a lot of sports have started to go now, and that's true for tennis, rugby, soccer. I think if you really look at it as a coach and you look at what's going on, like you're looking at world-class athletes first and foremost. And
I just saw the same thing kind of happen through mountain biking as well. Like,
I think that's that's the next shift. I think that can happen. I think that the riders that latch onto that early will be ahead of the game.
I mean, it's still light years ahead compared to what 90s, even early 2000s were, people were drinking the night before their race run and were racing like probably still drunk, and like it was a huge party culture. It was fun to watch, but it wasn't a sustainable sport.
So but again, it's opportunity, right? That's how I look at it. It's the guys that enjoy that process and apply themselves. Like, I think they have the best chance of success.
I don't know what it's like up in on the East Coast and stuff, but I know down here we've got a couple of people that are doing specific mountain bike training. Like, we've got Mountain Bike Bods, who's specifically for younger crew, and then we've got a couple of others that train moto but are delving into mountain biking now. But none of them have quite gone onto like a national scale like you. Was that a pretty hard thing to do, or like what was the thought process behind that?
Again, like going back to what I shared earlier, like it was never really the original plan. It just, because we were already running a business where we were coaching people remotely through an app, understood that mechanics of working with people remotely and how you can program online and how you can work with people in different states. So I guess that the skill set of doing that was there. And then all we had to do really was make it mountain bike specific. So we had an idea of how the software worked, the online software. So from that, we just went to some developers and we said, we'd like to brand our own software. We would like to build an app for these reasons. This is what we'd like the app to be able to do. And, what sort of cost are we looking at? So we just went through the process of designing that, building it. And that's basically what went on for most of last year. Once we became clear that that's the direction that we were going to take the business. We had an existing fitness app that we were using, and so we understood conceptually what we wanted it to do and how we wanted it to work. And then you just have them conversations with the developers, and they do the work, essentially the coding and all of that stuff. We just branded it, so yeah.
That's interesting. What's your feedback been like from people using the app? And I guess as a coach, you like face-to-face time. Like there's nothing better.
Yeah.
Is it harder to do through that?
It's a different challenge. So if I work with you face-to-face and you come and see me and we're in the gym together, and you perhaps, let's say you've got a back injury, or you complain that you have a stiff back when you go in the gym, there's going to be certain exercises that I need to ensure that your form and your posture are in a good position to avoid the risk of injury. So as a coach, if I'm actually in there with you, observing hands-on as you're actually going through the motion, it's a lot easier for you to know if you're doing it right or wrong versus going. So the way that we do it online is you have a gym access local to where you live and have your program inside of the app to follow. And your relationship with me is that you video the exercises that you want some feedback on, that you're not quite confident with, or you might not be sure that you're doing it correct. So you take the video, you submit it into the app, and then I'll look at it and I'll go, okay. And then I give you the feedback online. So they both work, but there's just a slower process of learning, I think, remotely versus working face to face. I think the learning curve happens a lot faster if you're actually together in person. One of the things we have planned for 2024, and ongoing, is to do clinics. So we're in the process now of recruiting on-bike coaches, and we've got some coming on very soon in Queensland. And we're going to be looking at running camps over Australia.
Yeah,
and
cool.
Part of the camps will be on-bike stuff with the on-bike coaches that are going to do that part of it. And then there'll also be like a health and wellness component, teaching the guys how to actually take care of themselves, almost like not a health retreat, but like an intensive learning, might be like 2 or 3 days, and some the strength and fitness components to that. So because I'm a big fan of face-to-face learning, right? I do think that the guys that come to that sort of stuff get a lot more out of it than just everything being online. I think it'll feed quite nicely into what we're doing online, because they'll have an opportunity to do it face to face as well.
I know one of our clubs, Gravity Enduro, 2 years ago, we ran like a camp where we brought Timmy Eaton and Shana Hearn down and did like a 3 or 4 day camp with a bunch of crew, like a pretty select crew, but it was still decent. And we even had some like local riders coaching and everything like that. And just watching the progression after those 4 days was unreal.
Yeah. So it's I guess a little bit of that with some of the other stuff that we're doing inside of it, just bringing them together to show how they talk together, that they don't have to be seen as two separate things. Taking care of this stuff that you're doing in the gym and your health directly helps this stuff that you're doing on the bike.
Yeah. What's it been like finding, obviously you stumbled upon Luke and and Ryan. So you somehow, were walking along the road and found a couple of nuggets of gold. But what's it been like finding other ambassadors and using those guys to help boost your marketing as well? Because you guys are one of the only people in Australia, I think, that are doing it pretty close to perfect. So,
look, again, we just looked at what was currently happening. A lot of last year, we were spectators. We were in and we were just having conversations. So with athletes, with people running businesses, all of these different brands in different parts of mountain biking, and looking at what sponsorship was to them. And as far as we could tell, most of what the athletes were getting in terms of what they considered a sponsorship was just a 15% discount code. We're like, okay. So what started to happen on our Instagram was they seen Luke and Ryan and, some of the early guys that we onboarded. And then we just have almost daily inboxes of, hey, can we be sponsored? Hey, can we be sponsored? And that language to us meant, can we have what Luke and Ryan have? And we're like, hey, we've got to put together some type of like sponsorship program here, because I don't think the guys quite get what it is that we're doing. And that was, just our communication. And so we had to build like a way that we could work with riders from age 14, because that was what the academy was about, giving them access to coaching as young as they could start, but also feel that they were being supported, so what we wanted SuperDust to be about was, how can we support these guys in every way we possibly can to give them the best chance of success. And that wasn't just about coming to the gym, we had a lot of products. So in the early, the level one part of the sponsorship was just to give the guys access to free products, so we just a bag of protein and some greens every month. And all we asked in return was that they just put something on their stories to show that they were using it. And then, that went all the way up to the relationship that we had with Luke and Ryan, where they're actually sponsored athletes who actually pay, there's a fee that goes into, them being part of the ambassador team. So I think, one of the things I think that we did well last year was utilizing the relationships of the kids to help put us out there into the community. So they would just make reels of them at the weekend, racing with their mates, competing, and we just collaborate, and that was just a way of us showcasing that we were in the community and, we're here to help, and this is the work that we do. And it was always done carefully. We didn't just say yes to anyone and anything. It was, does this kid, come across in the right way? Do we think that they're going to represent us on social media in the way that we would like to be represented on social media? Do they have the same vision that we have in the sense of, are they looking at mountain biking as like a serious sport for them? Are they thinking about going professional by the time they're 18, 19, 20? And that was part of the onboarding process. We went through that process with quite a lot of kids, and in a lot of cases we had to talk to the parents as well, because
100%.
We've got some ambassadors that are 13. They started with us when they were 13. So that decision wasn't with the kid, right? It was with the dad. And then, they could see that what we were doing and how we were supporting the guys. And, by the time that we had launched at SuperDust, I think the team now is, maybe we've got 8 or 9 riders that are connected to the brand, and they all have their own unique relationship with us. And, that's been established based on where they're at in life, the time they have available to, be part of the brand. Are they professional? Are they just learning? Are they still at school? But as long as they feel that there's an equal and opposite exchange of value and time, that's sort of, that's where we're coming from, at least.
I think that statement of equal and opposite exchange of time is a massive thing that a lot of brands forget and a lot of people forget. Like, essentially, if you're a sponsored rider, you're working and then you get paid. It's the same as everything. But then for some of the brands, like, they don't use the work that's been done by the athlete enough.
Yeah, well, that's
so
what
that it support like it should be a solid balance where every time someone does something, the whole system raises. But more often than not, it seems like the people are doing a lot of work and then the work's not getting used. by other brands.
And you know, and last year our strategy was not about making me and my business partner center of attention. It wasn't about us. Really, what we were trying to do is champion the guys, you know,
Yeah.
first and foremost, Luke and Ryan, to make them be superstars. But the young kids as well, you know, we wanted them to feature on the page. We wanted them to feel that they were being heard and listened to, and because we felt that would be the best way to grow the community and show that we were actually investing in them. Not, it wasn't about us, you know. Like eventually I obviously had to put my face out because people wanted to know who is the coach behind all of this stuff. But it was never really about me, you know. It was never, the brand isn't about us, it's about what we're trying to do for the community at large. That's really what SuperDust represents.
But without taking like the human side and the fact they are people away from them, but they're also, the athletes are your product at the end of the day. Like you are building their success. So by you advertising their success, you are showing their product like it.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's a testimonial to the academy, isn't it? You know, the way I look at it now is if we're able to achieve what we're setting out to achieve through the academy, is we would like to have like a conveyor belt of really high performing mountain bike athletes by the age of 17, 18 that have been a part of the academy for maybe 13, 14, 15, and they just learn how to, you know, look after themselves the right way. They've learned how to eat, they've learned how to train. The thing that we can't do is give them ability, right? But we're just trying to give them the best chance of success. And yeah, now, you know, just finishing off on the comments about the sponsorship, now we're very deliberate that the only people that we offer sponsorship to have to be a part of the academy, because what we learn through the process of putting people through the academy is you get to see the nature of character as well, just by how they go through following the programs and how they communicate and how they show up, and, you know, are they consistent? Are they going to be good advocates for what we're trying to represent, like as in high performance? And it's just a nice little way that we can say thank you to the guys that are loyal to the program and, you know, actually follow and stick around.
It does seem like there's a bit of it seems very similar to the way Supercross is kind of progressing as well. Like you see those juniors getting in at way too young for some of them, but they're getting sponsored at Pee-wee 50 class, like the lowest class possible, but they're in the academy and they follow whatever someone in the 80s is doing, and then they're following someone that's doing the 125s and 250 and so on.
Yeah.
Like it is this academy where you can coach yourself, but they're also following in other people's footsteps.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to get to a point where brands or teams are looking at people that have come from the SuperDust Academy?
I think
because there's going to be a like heritage there.
As a coach, it's a huge sort of thing to aim for, I guess. You know, that you were able to consistently produce a level of athlete that almost became like, oh, they must have come from SuperDust because of the way they ride, you know, like that would be a sense of achievement. From, you know, thinking about the academy takes a long time to produce that, you know, because you really need to have results consistently produced over many years. Like it's easy to say it, but to actually do it is a completely different beast. But yeah, like the vision is very clear for us that what we would like to do in mountain biking is just change the standards, you know, raise the bar of level of athletes that are coming into the sport, or raise the level of athletes that by the time they're age 18, you know, like that they've actually had access to professional coaching. So they're not having to figure this stuff out as they're looking to go pro, right? Because you've got guys now that are talented, winning races, but they still haven't learned all of this stuff that now some of the kids that have been inside of the academy for the last 12 months have started to learn. So yeah, I mean, a nice vision for the future as a success testimony for the academy would be to just have all of these SuperDust riders, essentially, you know, like a cherry on the cake would be to have a SuperDust race team for sure.
Yeah.
No, that would be pretty cool, but that's a long way off just yet.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
How did you come across Baxter?
Stu. My
Okay.
business partners, so I'm the coach. If you haven't realized, I'm doing all the academy stuff, the strength training, and all the coaching with the kids and the guys. My business partner is heavily involved in the marketing and the media side of
Okay.
stuff. So she was trying to build relationships with videographers and people that could help us with high level content. And Stu was one of the guys that sort of started to do a bit of work with us. And they were trying to create some different ideas around different projects. And I think Stu at the time was doing some work with Baxter.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
he introduced Baxter to Juliana, my partner. And yeah, she's very creative. And, I think she liked the way that Baxter had a different style that was a little bit different to what we were mostly doing within mountain biking, and that he was doing some cool stuff. And yeah, they met and it just went, yeah, we just felt that he was a good addition to the team. Like he had a unique audience that we felt could be valuable to, talk to.
Definitely a unique human. I love the guy,
Yeah.
seeing that surfer skate style that he's bringing to mountain biking is rad. I think we're going to see more of that
Because I
from a
think if
few
you want to
riders.
bring, like, there's one thing, constantly repeating the word performance and athlete, but at the same time, it has to be interesting to watch, right? Like, if you're going to grow a sport and the level of interest and participation, some people resonate with that high performance message that, they're your typical athletes that are probably hardwired that way. And they probably thought like that since a very young age. But some people are just here for the enjoyment, purely enjoyment, just the fun of it. And I get that, and they might not be the ones that are the high achievers in an academy per se, but they still love the sport and they want to see all that cool stuff. And, they're going to be part of the community. And I think Baxter has a nice blend of both of that. He takes his riding very seriously, but he's also got that style and, very unique way that he does it. I think that's very interesting to watch, like, which is what Notion Jam was, right? Like, it's just,
That was unreal. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I was saying earlier, I wish I went to it. Where did the name SuperDust come from? Because I'm sure there's a few older blokes that think they've done some SuperDust in the past. But
Yeah.
how'd you come up with the name and where that
It's a
kind of
play
came from?
on. So when we decided to rebrand, we hired like professional help. We worked with an art director team, like who had like a professional suite of professionals doing, designs and logos and branding and concepts. And it was just conversations that we were having with the team. And it was a play on the fact that we were a supplement brand originally, and the actual format of a protein powder is actually just dust. When you're racing around the trails, how the dust flicks up off the back of the tires. And we were thinking at the time of like, it's likely that we're going to have a suite of products within the umbrella of the nutrition stuff that we're going to deliver. At the moment we have 3, there's potential for more. And we just felt that super worked with a lot of things, so we had the super flow greens, we have the supercharge electrolytes. SuperDust just felt like it was a word that connected quite closely with mountain biking, because of visually how you could use that and different types of media and stuff.
And I guess like you might have mentioned it before, but where did your focus on using good media come from? Like, how do you guys go about finding good media?
Again, fortunate through the relationships that we met in the early days. Again, my partner's got a very keen eye for highly produced work. She will go out of her way to find the people that are producing the high level content. So, she reached out to people like Stu, who was producing like, film sort of quality media. And then Luke and Ryan obviously naturally have photographers and videographers that follow them around, and they're very good at showing who it is that's took the photos and who's produced the media. So, at the time, because the boys were both ambassadors of, P3 at the time, we just reached out to some of the guys that were following them around Europe and, started to pay for some of their work essentially. So then, they were producing high level work that we started to showcase on our page. So yeah, and I think it's just also understanding what works on Instagram. if you really look at the brands that are growing quick and the algorithms like the work that's done well, there's a time and a place that you can get away with it on stories where it might not be like top end production quality. But I think for the most part, if you're sharing reels or posts on your feed, I think it definitely helps if you're trying to be seen, or get your message out there that it's done in a high quality. And it also represents the brand, right? Like, I think what we're trying to be very deliberate with is everything we're putting our time and energy into has a standard. We're trying to bring that sort of element of professionalism into the sport in a way, like through the coaching, through the branding, the media, the type of athletes we're working with. Like that's the sort of benchmark, I guess. So sort of like how you do anything is how you do everything. That's, I guess, the motto that we sort of have.
It's definitely interesting to see. There's a lot of haphazardry I see some newer brands try and mess around with, but to see someone coming out of the gate and using high quality stuff is very refreshing. Yeah.
And if you're going to spread the message broader than just your local community, if you actually want it to go viral and mountain bikers in Canada and America and Europe see it, like that's how you have to do it, right? It has to look the part.
100%. Yeah. Especially in today's world where there's a lot of, I guess, just phone clips and everything else. It just kind of pops up and crash reels and everything else. So I guess we might start wrapping things up a little bit. I usually have 3 questions I like to ask at the end of every episode. What advice would you have for anyone that wants to get into training, or perhaps someone that wants to get into becoming a coach?
Are we assuming that these are mountain bike enthusiasts?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if they're not already in a gym and they would like to start, I think the academy is definitely a good place for them to learn. If they're going to get programs that are very deliberately written for mountain biking. And as I say, there's guidelines there from someone that's never stepped foot in a gym. We've even got programs for people that don't have access to a gym. So they would fall in the category of beginner, no gym access. We have programs for that caliber of people as well. But my advice would be that I would definitely recommend working with a coach, because I think if you've never done it, the likelihood of you sticking at it long enough to see a result is very low unless you know what you're doing, right? And there's very few people, unless they've got parents that have, studied a little bit about coaching and stuff like that. So if they're serious, they're actually doing it for the right reasons, I would say try and get a coach. And that could be someone local to where they live if they want to work face-to-face. If they are happy to have a go online, the academy might be a good option. And the other question was if you wanted to become a coach.
Yeah.
So is in like a gym coach, a health coach, a nutrition coach, that sort of stuff?
Either. Like probably, let's go with nutrition, because I think that's probably one of the harder ones for people to kind of find.
It's probably easy if I just share my story. I mean, there's probably 10 different ways you can become a nutrition coach today. My path was I went to university in the UK. I studied a 3-year nutrition degree. And then from there, I just went into the practical application of teaching nutrition to people through, I was working in a gym. So most of my earliest work and experience was in the form of, fat loss initially. That's typically the conversations that you have with most people. And then over time, you start to just connect to different people. And I started to favor the work that I was doing with athletes because I was playing sport myself, and the nature of them type of conversations were more interesting to me. But I think nutrition is 100% going to be a key conversation within any sport. So if you're wanting to be a coach and you actually want to work with people that are passionate about sport, as a coach, I think you should absolutely go and study the science of nutrition, and it's constantly evolving, right? And it's one of these degrees or knowledge bases that what was true 10 years ago, you're constantly learning, because no two people are the same to start with. So the advice that I might have to give to you if you wanted to come and work with me might be very different than if I trained your best mate. And that's just how it is. So it's like, it's always case by case, which makes the work interesting. Like it means that if actually I'm going to be passionate and proper about what I do, that there's not just a cookie cutter approach. I'm not just going to send you an email with like some real basic instructions. It's likely not going to work. I need to actually understand what's going on in your lifestyle to actually coach you around nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's a long-winded answer, but I think there's a lot of opportunity in mountain biking for more nutrition coaches for sure. Again, if you look at the existing brands that are providing products to mountain bikers, they're all crap. They're all full of, there's not a lot of high quality nutrition companies that are actually putting good quality products in front of their athletes.
Yeah.
You're full of sugar. They've got all nasty chemicals in them. So if you're looking at it from a health perspective, which is first and foremost what I try to do, underneath everything, you want it actually to be good for their health, right? Not just because it adds a second to their time. If it can be good for their health and it improves performance, that's what you're looking to do.
Here's a question I just thought of, but so I know we're supposed to be wrapping up, but have you been working with people that are getting trained by someone else, but then want nutritional information and help from you guys with the products? Like, so have you ever separated them, the two?
So working with someone just on nutrition?
Yeah,
absolutely. So we have just started working with Sasha Kim.
Sick, cool.
So he reached out originally last year. This is before he got signed by Giant, and he was originally looking to come on board as part of the academy, and then he went away over the Christmas period. And by the time he'd come back, he announced that he'd been signed. And I think with that commitment, he didn't want to then commit to the academy because of just, he wasn't quite sure what his life was going to be like this year. And, I fully understand. And we just decided to start to work together just on the health side of things. So I said to him, because he then started to develop a relationship. He knew Luke and Ryan anyway, but I think because he's part of Giant, he reached out to Luke and Ryan, and I think they had been generous enough to, give me a testimonial, so to say, and that gave him enough confidence to, work with me as well. So I'm working with Sasha at the moment on his health, and, we're not going into anything to do with the gym, nothing side of his fitness. Basically just him as a human being and his health. So absolutely. That's because to me, that's what matters, right? That's going to contribute to performance. And as a nutritionist, that's something that I feel I can add value with. So
so someone doesn't have to be
committed
to everything.
No. Some of the, so we've, in the last 3 months, we started working with Connor Milkey as well.
Sick. Yep.
She's part of the ambassador team, but she hasn't stepped foot inside of the gym programs yet. So the first work we're doing with her is health. Okay. So we're doing gut health tests. We're looking at, we're actually just trying to help her as a human first, become healthy and, to get the best out of her. And if she wants to, the academy's there. Yeah. And that's the way that a lot of the relationships have actually happened. Luke and Ryan were the same. I never put a single gym program in front of either of them. Yeah. It was their health that I started with.
It would be hard for someone like Connor who's working a physical job to kind of deal with the academy as well, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why no two people are the same. Everyone's got what's going on in their personal life. Everyone's got their commitments to their sport, to their family. And it's just about where can we potentially add value to this human? Where are they struggling? What is one thing that we could potentially do that could take them from move the dial in the right direction? That's how I look at it. Because I guess for being a coach for so many years, like I have knowledge of a lot of the holistic approach to wellness. It's not just about nutrition. It's not just about gym. There's so many things that go into actually coaching someone when it comes to health that you might just talk about sleep. It could be that simple. You just actually teach them how to have a better sleep routine and some supplements that can help with sleep if they're not sleeping well. 100%. And that can make a huge difference, so there's so many different ways that you can help someone when it comes to health coaching. And that's the opportunity.
Second question I'd like to ask after about 4 intermediate ones there. Is there anything you would have changed or done differently up until now? Like,
To be honest, I think I sometimes still feel amazed that this is where we're at now, given how we started. It's I'm very grateful that it's happened this way, but I don't think I could be honest and say that I would do anything different. Like I think it feels that it all happened exactly as it needed to.
yeah,
Like just the people we met at the time that we met them, and the people that came into our life at the time that they did, but there was also our backstory, right? If we hadn't had the experiences in our life up until that point, we wouldn't have seen the opportunity. We only seen the opportunity because of the experiences we've had in business prior to having this opportunity.
yeah,
And that's,
exactly.
I don't know what you call that, fate, whatever, but would I have written it to be any different? No, like I'm just grateful for where we are. And yeah, I've been looking for this opportunity maybe in other sports for a long time, to be able to do something of this caliber, to have this level of impact or this level of influence, or to have this relationship with professional athletes. I've been seeking to do that before and it just never landed. Or we were
Yeah.
just in a space that was noisy. There was a lot of people competing for that voice. And when we came into this sport, it was great because it was quiet. No one was really doing what we're trying to do. And that was the right place at the right time.
Last one I ask, and it seems to be the hardest for a few people, but you're fit and you're obviously quite healthy yourself, but if you're lacking motivation and don't want to get up and, do your bench presses or squats in the morning, or, you don't want to sit in front of the computer for half an hour revising programs or whatever, is there anything you do to kind of get motivated, like music, anything you listen to, or any kind of procedures you do to kind of to motivate yourself and get up?
Yeah, I mean, look, as a health coach, I have very particular protocols that I sort of recommend. Lack of motivation, low energy is typically a reflection of lifestyle, in my opinion, in most cases, unless there's obviously something big and significant happening. So I probably start with your sleep. I probably look at your time that you're going to bed and what your sleep hygiene's like. What is the discipline around sleep looking like? You could build in some morning protocols where you try and be disciplined around getting up at a certain time and you go for a walk. It could be to do with having a hydrating drink first thing in the morning, just to actually fuel the body and wake up. It could be doing some breath work. Music is absolutely powerful for sure. If it's the right type of music and it's uplifting, not heavy and negative sort of stuff that can feel heavy. Again, it's case by case. Like it's what I think I would try and understand a little bit more about why that person is feeling unmotivated. The rest in their life, is something going wrong with their marriage? Is work stressful? Is there something actually contributing to the reason they feel low motivation? And is there something that we can do in that conversation first? And maybe it's just modifying some behaviors, some thought patterns. Like it's typically never linear. It's never just one thing. You've actually got to have some grasp of what's actually going on with this person and why do they feel that way. And maybe they have a poor diet. Maybe their nutrition's terrible and they're not getting energy from food. So it's not surprising that they're waking up with no energy because their nutrition's terrible. Maybe you need to start with that.
Yeah.
They're eating healthier, then they wake up feeling better. They have more motivation to do tasks each day. And maybe it's books. They could read a book, like something they get some inspiration from a book. Yeah.
100%.
Hopefully that's something.
No, I rate it. It's a good answer. I really like it. That kind of brings us up to everything. Is there anything you kind of wanted to mention or anything I might have forgotten throughout this?
No, I just wanted, I guess, to say thank you again. Like, part of what we're trying to do is reach out to more people, expand the network, and people to build trust with who we are and what we're doing and for the reasons that we're doing it. And any opportunity to talk to people that are already in the community is, an honor for us. So we're very grateful for that opportunity. And yeah, like any way that you feel like you can help support the journey, we greatly appreciate. So.
No worries. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. And it's been a really, really good chat.
Thanks,
I
mate.
really
Thanks.
enjoyed it.